Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dream Design Podcast with Amy Lee. I'm your host, Amy Lee Westervelt, and today, you guys, I have a special treat. You know how obsessed I am with all things human design, so what better guest to bring than another human design expert who's been studying this for forever and has so much juicy stuff to teach us. And she's going to tell us all about her journey and how she got to where she is today. So please join me in welcoming Analena Fuchs, who is a human design mentor and coach. Welcome, Analena.
Hi, Amy. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. So I always ask this question first because I think it's really important. Obviously, we don't get out of school and say, when I grow up, I want to be a human design mentor, right? Like, tell us a little bit about your trajectory and how you got from where you thought you were going to go to where you are now.
Yeah, that's a cool question. Yeah, so when I was in school, I remember actually in high school, we made this magazine, right, for graduation. And I was kind of doing the whole thing. I was in the design committee. And I said, I'm going to be the next math teacher in my high school because I'm a math nerd. I love math. And I have always been really good at teaching, So I was helping students very easy to get from an F to an A. But I thought I'm going to, be like a math teacher, something with numbers for sure. But then, things went a little different. I went to college. Eventually, I studied business administration. And I thought I'm going to work for McKinsey or Boston Consulting and those kind of things. But somehow it didn't work out. It felt a little off. And then I worked for years in corporate, like accounting, finance, office management, a little bit of human resources. And the only time where I felt kind of happy was when I had a lot of different things to do, like some human resources, some finances, and a little bit of training I started to do as well, like employee trainings and stuff. So, but once I was really had to focus on just one thing and only finance and doing reconciliations every month over and over again, I got so freaking bored. And then eventually, because I grew up in Germany, right? And in Germany, we have at least where I grew up, like on the countryside, organic foods and, healthy living was kind of normal in a way. And when I came to America, I have to say I was a little shocked. I really didn't like it here first. I was like, oh my God, I cannot, like the food is not food. I mean, what are people eating here? This is not, it was really horrible for me. So eventually I started to kind of see how people are suffering with their health. And it came easy to me to help people like, hey, just do this and that. So I started to become a coach, but more in the realm of health coaching and then life coaching. Then I started to realize, well, people are not just going to change their habits. There's something more behind it. So I started to dive into energetics. Always this word energy came to me. And then I did a lot of the inner emotional healing work, actually for myself first and foremost. And then somehow I went more into business coaching. And then, human design and all these beautiful things found me. And that's when I was, when you feel like you arrived in some way, like, because I always felt there's something missing, like, but a really fundamental piece was missing. And I think I stopped searching, honestly. And then all of a sudden, when at least, when you don't expect it, really, when you're not looking, it came. And then, I mean, I have to say, because human design has a lot of numbers, right? So it's kind of a math puzzle for me. So I think it was perfect. And it came so easy to me. Like, and I think we briefly talked about this once, where it was just like I remembered it. And I was like, okay, and I knew way more than people knew that already knew about human design for decades, and I felt a little bit like, well, that's unfair. But then I learned about my two line, and I have to do what comes very freaking easy to me. And so I just started to embrace it. And it was first for myself because it's changed my personal life and my business so much. I mean, I cannot express it almost in words. So much relief, so much like confirmation that what I already knew about myself wasn't wrong, right? And also finally that I gave myself permission to stop over investing in things that really were totally misaligned, because I always thought somebody else has the answers and there's something wrong with me. And I was really at the point where I'm like, I'm not cut for this online space. And I'm a highly sensitive, introvert, empathic person. So, you too. Yeah. Like most people actually I talk to are that. That's why I'm sometimes like, why do we, especially, and I like it because you're a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, and we're always like, you're these workhorses and high energetic and super outgoing. It's like, I don't know. That's kind of missing the point a little bit, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's kind of my
I
dream.
think they're able to show up that way because we're talking to a computer. I mean, I do not think that I would be the same. In fact, I know I was in multi-level marketing for a long time, and I was a very high up leader there. And when I was in person, I was shy. I was in the corner. Like I can be outgoing because there isn't a big draw on my energy. I'm giving a lot of energy, but it's not a lot of taking energy, right? So I think that the online space allows a lot of introverts to really kind of shine and give more of themselves, because we do have the opportunity to hang up, to close the camera and then go recharge by ourselves. We don't have to then go sit with a bunch of people at a table and, continue the facade. So I think, to be fair, I think that that's probably why a lot of us thrive so much in this atmosphere.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, now that you say that. It's just, in the beginning, I thought you have to be always present and you have to dance on the camera all the time and post every single day, But that's with the online space, you actually can very beautifully hide behind the scenes. I mean, I know personally there are people out there, they have podcasts, they do trainings, they never show their face, and it works,
Yeah, absolutely. No, it completely works. And I love how you said that human design kind of found you, because that's exactly how it happened with me. In fact, it bugged me for a long time and I didn't want anything to do with it. I remember there was this one girl that when I first heard about it, she would not stop talking about it. And I finally blocked her. I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to hear about this human design thing. I'm so sick of like all these personality tests, and I wanted to run away from it. And it was like, oh, no. And, I kid around that like Ra is like, Ra, or who is like my godfather or something, because we're both 5'1s. And like, so I kid around that like he was like haunting me, right? Like he was like, you need to look at this. You need to look at this. But like you, I too felt like human design was truly the missing piece, and I think for me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but like my feeling is that we've talked for years, for 50 years, about the quarter life crisis, the midlife crisis. Like, what am I here for? What is my life really about? Mm-hmm. And I think that human design is really kind of like the puzzle piece that solves that. It's like, well, I like to think of it like your dreams and what it is that you want to create in this world is your mission, and your human design is the method. It's like, here's what you want to do, and here's the blueprint of how you're supposed to do it, and all of the ways that you are meant to interact with the world to get you to what is it? Collective consciousness desires, right? Like what it is that that source wants for the world that it's creating through you. Human design is going to get you there. And for me, that was, your dreams are your mission, your design is the method. When that clicked, dream design. I had been the dream design coach for so long and never really understanding what that design piece was. And then, like you said, all of a sudden it was like, oh my goodness, this is what design was all along. But I didn't know that until it came. So I just resonated so much when you said that, because that's exactly what it was like for me too.
Yeah. And I mean, me growing up, I was one of the most indecisive people on earth, I think. I even remember my dad sometimes, what do you mean you don't know? And I have a completely open solar plexus, right? So for me, it's actually very common. You too, okay. You see, like, I talk to my people. So it's very normal for us. We can fall on this, like we don't know what we're feeling, what we want, what we desire. Like I have had this so many times, and I'm a specific manifesting type. That's the only arrow I have pointing to the left. But I have to say, I only, really use that when it comes to me with ease. I don't know everything in exact detail, what I want or what I want to do in a week or all these kind of things, but it's kind of this overarching dream. I know, and I have a defined G center, so I know where I'm going very strongly, very clearly. But it's like, I was like, yeah, human design is like a GPS, right? You put kind of the end goal in there if you happen to know that, right? We never want to force that. But then it's like, it just spits out the next step. Here you go left, here you go right. It doesn't give us every single step, because depending on where you go, it may redirect. Maybe your big goal changes, right? It's okay. And it's really, and it goes back to all these other things we have learned, right? Living in the present moment, right? It's true, because only when we really do that, we can, in our case, listen to that sacred sound, to that.
Well, and also, if you think about it, living in the present moment is the only place you can live. Because if you're living in the past,
well, you can't.
Then, you can't change that. And if you're living in the future, it hasn't happened yet. So the only place where you really have any power is in the moment anyway. So you kind of have to live in the moment.
Yeah. And you know what's funny, now that you say that, I remember I did a workshop or like a speech, even before I knew about human design. I was talking exactly about this. I had a thing with, this is the present moment. This is all we ever have. If we live in the past, we just regrets and we can't change it. And future, basically, we live in anxiety, right? Or worries that doesn't even, and we miss out what's actually right in front of us. And somehow, like, I knew these things, but human design made it click, was like, yeah, this is really so important. And also, what was such a game changer for me, that how we're meant to be different, right? Because I used to compare myself, oh my God, to the point of exhaustion, and you lose yourself, right? And, and I think we have all some elements of openness in our human design, but like, I took on so much of other people's like ideas and strategies and how we have to do things, right? And that just disconnects you from yourself. So that's why I really feel human design gives you that gift of, learning what is your personal strategy, right? What is your personal path? And when you're so deeply rooted in that, and that may take some time, and it may actually require people to kind of disconnect a little bit from the outside noise. And I'm, even though we are coaches, I actually recommend to people, like, stop working with a bunch of coaches and other people that are telling you what to do for a while, so that you can start to listen to yourself. And once you're really in tune with your strategy and authority, you know who are the right people for you to work with, right? It doesn't feel like coaching is not a good thing, not at all, right? They may be the most amazing coach out there. That's exactly what you need. But when it comes from the place of like, oh, they have the solution for me, there's always the wrong energy behind, right? But when it turns into like a co-creation, where you don't know why, but you feel the sacred pull or whatever your authority is, I mean, so much magic happens.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we could do like a series of like talks, because like there's so many things I want to touch on, and I think the best way to do it is just to kind of like talk about each one of them. So first and foremost, I think something that's really important that you and I probably understand more than a lot of people do. When we think about empaths and highly sensitives, right? You think of people who are very emotional. But the more that you study human design, you learn that we're actually non-emotional. And when you tell that to an empath, the first thing they do is go, no, that's not right. That's not me. But the truth of the matter is, it's not our own emotions. We're like air traffic control towers for other people's emotions. And so when we start to realize that our own emotions are in there, but we're not processing them. And because we're not processing them, we're then coding them into our DNA and passing them on to our children and potentially, to our entire lineage. And that's when we're talking about, trapped emotions, especially in the NLP world where I come from. It's because as empaths, yeah, absolutely, we process emotions all day long, but they're not ours. Yeah. And that is such a huge revelation, don't you think? I mean, to know that about yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, because that was the funny thing also for me, I did work on the emotional work for a couple of years before human design, like I said, found me. And there was a point where I got stuck, where sometimes kind of, because it's like you learn, okay, you have to feel your emotions and the negative ones so they can flow through you. but you can also overindulge yourself in that, right? And kind of stay in that energy, and then it's hard to get out of there. So, and I think I started to identify with it too much a little bit, right? And then, when I learned about my human design, hey, girl, you have an open solar plexus, like any kind of emotions you feel is like what you're taking on from the outside world, from your environment and everything, right? And that was a game changer. It was a game changer in my relationship. My partner has the 12-22 and the 55-39 channel, and I have open solar plexus, I used to take things personal.
Like shoveling things into your world. Like, here you go, here's a trash chute right into your life.
And now when I'm like, oh, he's in his high, he's in his low. And I just have so much more compassion for me and for him, And then, but the other thing I have to say, because I have looked at so many or worked with so many people and done readings and look at human design charts, there's also a ton of people out there that have emotional authority, but they have the will center open or the G center. They also consider themselves highly empathic. So
absolutely.
There is not like, we cannot, and I know in human design we say like, oh, if you have an undefined solar plexus, you are the empath. But we all have some kind of openness.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I just thought of that as something that a lot of people are like, wait, no, I'm not unemotional. And I'm like, well, according, in this terminology you are, but you bring up another good point that, you mentioned that the world, let me see if I can say this correct. The world kind of tries to put everybody in boxes and make everybody all the same. And from an economic standpoint, that makes sense, right? Like, let's make 1 million of something and paint them different colors and give people the illusion that they have choice. But like you said, human design is the study of differentiation. It's the science of differentiation. And so in human design, what we're actually attempting to do is de-homogenize and really look at the nuances of who everybody is. But what I find, and I want to know what you think, when you first find out what your type is and what your authority is, what's the first thing you do? You go put yourself in that box, and it's almost like you're homogenizing again, right? So what do you suggest, like when somebody's new to human design and, they jump in with the 5-1s, or they jump in with the 6-2s, or, they jump in with generators, like how, because I've got a lot of people in my audience who are going to want to know this, like how do you prevent yourself from then, because it's almost like, Analena, it's almost like once you know what you are, you start to reflect your behavior back to what you are. You know what I mean? Like you do something and you're like, well, I did that because I'm a 5-1. It's almost like you're doing it that way in preparation for knowing that that's who you are. And so how do you kind of break that rehomogenization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about teaching human design. And if you follow me on Instagram, so I share a lot about human design on Instagram. And I have received so much feedback from people that I have this very expansive approach to human design, because I have seen exactly this. And I see, so let's talk a little bit about the downfall of human design, because everything, right, we can use it to our advantage or disadvantage, right? So there's a lot of human design stuff out there where it's all about the 5 types. It's like, oh, here are the generators. This is typical for them. Here are the reflectors. Here are the manifestors. Here's the manager, and here's the projector. And if I'm being honest, I can relate to all of it. And like, I'm almost like sick and tired of these posts where there's just this one piece of advice for one type, for one type, for one type. And I did at some point.
I know who you're talking about, by the way.
Is that?
I said, I know who you're talking about, by the way.
I mean, I think there's lots of people out there, and I'm not trying to point fingers. I just
no. I think the people that do that are lovely, but I'm just saying I can think of a couple of people. Who literally their job, the way that they teach human design is every day. It's like, here's a little, tidbit for if you're this.
Yeah, and I have really made a point. And what I also totally find, what is not serving human designers all, if you have one type and they talk kind of crappy about another type, we're conditioned by this type. That's just the word. I see this with projectors a lot sometimes. Like, oh, we're like, we need to get away from the generators. We are here to work together and support each other, right? So anyways, I did a post about, I think it was called Cravings by Human Design Type. But it was kind of like a joke. So I made, this is for the generators. We crave to be loved and heard and seen. And it was the same for every type, right? So, and then I think I made a joke for the managers and chocolate or something like that, right? So because I found it so ridiculous, that we actually using human design to put things into a box.
Yeah, again.
And that is not the point. And also, like, what happens so much, because I think you can relate to this a lot, like the generators and the mani-gens are always perceived as this very high bundle of energy, always ongoing, and we're the workhorses and almost like the slaves of the universe or something like that. And we're too much in some way, right? And what I have found, and this is me, who I am myself, and I think 95% of the people that I attract, they're highly sensitive, empathic. They feel like what they see, they resonate more with the project, but I'm tired all the time. So there is really a lot of stuff. I honestly want to say probably the majority that's out there about human design is more doing the opposite of what it's actually meant to do. And I have started to speak a little bit louder about it, and I have found it resonates a lot with people, because especially with the generator tests, are like, oh, thank God for putting some truth out there, because I don't resonate with most of the things. Like, we're not all extrovert and high energy all the time, and so it's really we have
an experiment too. It's an experiment. I mean, at the end of the day, it's called the human design experiment. We're meant to see how we move through the world, and there's so many, like, it's so interesting to me because, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way, but like when we think about, okay, so like a really big tenet of human design is the magnetic monopole, right? And the idea of the driver and the car and whatever. And I would say 99% of human design education doesn't even talk about the magnetic monopole, doesn't even go into what is actually driving us, and if you don't have that information and you look at the human design system through the lens of somebody who is teaching it in a trendy, fun way of like, here's this celebrity and what I think they are, or whatever it is, you miss out on that level of mastery of what it really is. And then your experiment is going to be affected. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We have to be careful, right? Because anytime it leads to putting us into a box, it's really not serving us. So that's why I always say, because sometimes people also, I don't like my 3-line, or I don't like this gate, or they feel like a victim of it, right? And my job is always like to help them feel more empowered about it, because everything is perfect as it is, right? And honest to God, if you don't resonate with something, just drop it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, human design is not here for you to be miserable. It's the opposite. Like, take what resonates and leave the rest, because honestly, in essence, all that human design is about is to trust yourself.
Right, 100%. And like, you got to wonder, like, how did we get the negative underpinnings of human design if somebody didn't create those? Like, for example, if you have open centers, people think that means that there's something wrong with you there. And it's like, I would much rather have an open spleen than a closed one. Thank you. So like, that doesn't necessarily mean, but somebody at some point decided to call it that, that somehow you don't have access to this energy. It's negative. And now all of a sudden we've got this prevailing concept where people will be like, oh, is it bad that I have an open? No, it's not. It just is. There is no good and bad. And you really have to exercise restraint when it comes to polarity, when it comes to human design, because there is no good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, there is no human design without the defined and an undefined. It's right, exactly. That's so true. We need all of it, because, for example, like anything that I have open in my chart, you and I, we're only able to learn about the emotional energy because of the people that have emotional authority.
Right.
And vice versa. They're, through us reflecting it back to them, it's like we coexist within that, right? And exactly, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, there is just perfect as it is, right? So exactly, and that's really my main intention with human design to help people feel comfortable in who they are, always have been, always will be, and fully come to a place of accepting themselves and see their uniqueness and really love that they're different from the rest of everybody else, right?
And by design, I mean, it's meant to be that way.
Yeah. And that's also why, when I started in the coaching space, everything was like, because what happens is we fall into like following processes and strategies that work for somebody. Let's say it's a manifester or whatever, right? Or it's a generator. Doesn't matter really. But they have this process, these 5 steps that work for them. And they are put it out there like, this is the truth. This is the answer because it worked for me. And we fall for these things. We think because it worked for you, it has to work for me. And then, of course, we feel like a failure because it doesn't. And sometimes we can, through a lot of push and hustle and grind, we can kind of seemingly make it successful on paper for a little while until we find out it's not sustainable, it burns us out, and da. So that's why I'm so passionate about human design, because I honestly feel like it's here to revolutionize the coaching industry. And a lot of this cookie cutter stuff it has to fall apart eventually, right? So that we also come to a better, like a more conscious way of distributing money, because I do feel like there's a big imbalance there, from kind of misusing that, oh, this is how it worked for me, now go copy what I did. And it's a little bit out of integrity for me now that I know about human design. I'm not saying these people do it intentionally, I think we all at some point were there. Hey, look, this worked for me, I'm sure it works for you. But human design gave me that understanding that if something works beautifully for me, does not mean at all it's going to work the same for somebody else.
No, absolutely. It won't. And I think that energetics plays such a big part in it, right? And I think at the end of the day, the way I look at it is that when we come to Earth School, we sit down with the universe, we look at like the potential charts we could have. And it's like, what about this one? It's like, yeah, I this time around, I need to have a closed G center. Like I just need it. It's like, okay, I get it. Well, I can give you that, but you're going to have an 11 in your Mercury. And it's like, oh, okay, fine. And then, you sign the dotted line, you go to Earth and you're yourself, right? And so I think that the more that we understand that everything we have to deal with, we chose in some way to further the journey of our soul, we can stop. One of the things when I found out I was a 5/1, I gave myself so much forgiveness for all of the things that had happened to me that I was like, well, I don't understand why did this person turn on me? Well, why all of a sudden this, like, what's wrong with me that I consistently don't have good interpersonal relationships that are close? Mm-hmm. And what I came to realize, girlfriend, you're a 5/1. Like, you are a prolific creature that some people are just gonna want to be the icon. And if you leave that, then you are betraying their projection of who they thought you were. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people would look at that, and I did for the first however long, and be like, why me? Why can't I have close relationships? Why can't I be seen as a human being? Why am I only this projection? But then one day I was like, but you picked that. You picked that because that is somehow going to further your journey. And so when we look at it from that perspective of like, everything I'm dealing with, all the teachers in my chart, the open centers, those were chosen specifically to further my soul's journey. And when I look at it from that perspective, there is no good and bad. There just is. And this is what I'm dealing with. And I think that the more that people start to really embrace, and you see it now, I mean, even in the corporate level, people are asking for people's charts. People are wanting to know.
I love that. And that's, I think, that's what I envision also in schools, in corporate.
Yeah.
Just had it would just be so beautiful.
Dating. Yeah. I mean, they'll be literally like, think of match.com, and there'll be a spot for your human design, and you can filter. There's no way I'm dating a 3/6, or there's no, oh my gosh, I can't be with a reflector, right? Like I've already been with, like, who knows? I mean, that's coming. I mean, when the internet came out, people were like, the internet, that's not going to last. I'm going to make a bold statement and say, I think human design is going to go the way the internet. I do.
I hope so. Yeah.
I really do think so. Yeah. So, you have so many juicy things to share with us today. We popped up your Instagram for a minute. So there's the Instagram. You have also got some other stuff you wanted to share with us. You have a podcast, right?
Yeah, it's called The Art of Slowing Down, since I'm a manager, right?
I love that. And then you've also got a fun freebie for folks. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I have been working a lot on, I'm also very passionate about, is money, the whole concept about money. And, you know, especially as conscious business leaders or spiritual people in the online space, right, which definitely human design falls into that. You know, it is important. Like we got to make money, right, to live. And I know, especially we as women, we have a little bit of a history where that probably growing up or in past lives, that was not kind of the norm, right, from women to make a lot of money and stuff. And then it can be a flip side, right? We can go into an extreme where we make it all about money and we think success is defined by money, which is actually not the case at all. So to really come to a place of having a beautiful romantic relationship with money where you can allow yourself to really live out your desires, and some people could care less about making X amount of money, right? Some people, and I learned this also with human design and the gene keys, that depending what we have in our charts, there are some people that are not, money doesn't drive them. Yeah. So I was a person always that I loved money since I was a kid growing up, and I made myself, of course, wrong for that. When I learned my human design, I was like, oh, now I understand. You know, I have the money channel on my moon, for example. So can it be any more obvious than that?
Serious drive right there.
Yeah, it is. I have the 214 channel. I have.
Oh my gosh. I've only met like 3 people, and every time I do a reading and someone has that, I'm like, guess what? You won the lottery. And they're like,
And I want to talk about that because so, and I have.
No, I'm kidding.
No, but that's what people think, right? And I have the 3 line in my conscious Jupiter, which is like the money, like you love money, you want to have a lot of money and to party and celebrate and, you know, share with other people. And I've always felt that way. But I went totally into this place of like, there's something wrong with me that I like money so much. And I was in a place of scarcity for a long time where I always thought that I'm not worthy unless I make X amount of money, you know? And it finally clicked. And I did a lot of inner healing work. And I mean, over the years, a lot, right? So I'm now at a place, and I also learned I'm here actually to teach about money, you know? And I was like, who am I to teach about money? I have to make $1 million first, right? Or whatever, or if I want to write a book. But I started to talk about it, and people love it, and it really resonates with them. And I just want to also say, if you have these money channels, does not mean you're going to be born rich. I definitely did not come from a family where we had a lot of money. There was actually a lot of scarcity around money, lots of like fighting around money and all these kind of things, right? Because oftentimes people, that's another thing with human design, is like, okay, if I don't have those channels, I'm screwed. I'm going to tell you, I've seen people that are making 7 figures that don't have any of the money channels in their chart. So
yeah, Amy Porterfield is raking it in hand over fist, and she doesn't have any of that. I think she's just got 2644, I think, is like her big.
Yeah. So no matter what your human design is, you all, if that's your desire, can be a millionaire. We are all meant to be abundant and have all that we need and desire to live the life we're meant to live. So that's just out there. So that's why one of the energy healing modalities that I love is called infinity healing. It's super gentle, especially for highly sensitive people. So I have a free money romance activation that you guys can grab and let yourself be activated into like a really beautiful romantic relationship with money, whatever that will look like for you.
That's awesome. And then we've also got, you have a community as well.
Yeah, so I have actually, so with my business partner, Miranda Mitchell, we have the Aligned Living Academy, and we're both 2-4 managers, sacred authority, while we're still very different, I have to say that, because our charts are so different. But we have a community on Circle, which is, it's like a free community. That's a great place to connect with us, with other human design people as well. And then at the Aligned Living Academy itself, you can go there. We have lots of like master classes we have done over the course of this year. We started it at the beginning of 2022, sorry. And we have an amazing human design certification, you know, for anybody that is looking to not only dive deeper into your own human design, including the deconditioning work, but also if you want to learn it, like how to do readings, how to do it with your clients, or if you work in a corporate environment. So we have that as well. Plus we have some other more personal programs and courses coming always. So it's a great place to. We also have a Instagram, but you can find that Instagram through my Instagram. So it's all connected. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, so many awesome things to find here, and to learn more about human design, and to get readings if you want to, and to even be able to read others, if that's what you're into. So that is so fantastic. Analena, thank you so much for being here on the show today. It has been fantastic. You don't know, but my people know I love talking human design, especially with people who aren't afraid to get into, the dirty parts of it, right? The parts about like where it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it's not about all or nothing. There's so much gray area, and I think that's what makes it so special, and what makes it like a living, breathing science, because it is an experiment and it is changing all the time. So thank you so much for being here. It has been a sincere pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast always talking about human design, so I love it.
Absolutely. And you guys definitely check her out. Feel free to send her a message right here in the community. If you guys are watching in the Facebook group, if you're listening out in podcast land, there'll be all kinds of juicy things in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here. And that will do it for this episode of the Dream Design Podcast with Amy Lee. Until next week, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, and may you be at peace. Namaste.